Sangjenim resolves the bitterness and grief of all beings who have been trapped under the reign of mutual conflict and domination since the early heaven Gabyuk, and raises up the later heaven's 50,000-year paradise of immortality on earth, leading humanity to the path of new life. To bring all of this to pass, majestic human Sangjenim conducted his 9-year work of renewing heaven and earth during his human life in the eastern land, Joseon. In his work, Sangjenim corrected the order of heaven and earth, thus harmonizing the way of spirits with human affairs, and he employed the precepts of seeking out the beginning and returning to the origin, requital of benevolence, resolution of bitterness and grief, and the fulfillment of wishes, and mutual life-giving and life-saving, to bring to an end the early heaven's destiny of mutual conflict and domination, and usher in the later heaven's destiny of mutual life-giving and life-saving. Assembling all the spirits filled with unresolved bitterness and grief, all the spirits of failed revolutionaries, all the preeminent spirits of the world's civilizations, all the world's regional spirits, all family lineages, ancestral spirits, and other spirits, Sangjenim brought into being the government of spirits and established the timetable of changes for the coming world, to ensure that his profound vision would unfold through both the destiny of the Tao and the destiny of the world. To raise up the later heaven's paradise of immortality, Sangjenim established a grand framework seamless in its design. Sangjenim asked Hyungryo, "What would you say to you and I devoting ourselves to the work of renewing heaven and earth?" Hyungryo could only reply by inquiring, "The work of renewing heaven and earth? What, may I ask, do you mean?" Since the tides of heaven and earth dictate that the destiny of the early heaven shall give way to the onrushing destiny of the later heaven, I shall bring forth a new heaven and remake humanity to raise up the paradise of immortality. It is now the age for a new order to arise. The autumn destiny of heaven and earth has now arrived, so I shall rebuild the gate of life and return the workings of heaven and earth to their origin, to rouse new vitality in all directions. Such is the work of renewing heaven and earth. Swiftly grasping Sangjenim's words, Hyungryo asked, "With regard to bringing forth a new order, how will you make such a thing come to pass?" It is now the age in which the tragic destiny of heaven and earth shall cause an unnamed deadly disease to erupt. Without the immortal healer, not even a single descendant of 10,000 ancestors can be saved. Sangjenim then spoke at length about the destined course of the coming times. Sangjenim finally asked Hyungryo, "Are you willing to undertake a work that will ruin 2 families but bring success to the 1 family?" "I am willing to do so, even if 10 families are to be ruined," Hyungryo pledged. "If the 1 family succeeds at the cost of 10 families, will those 10 families not have succeeded after all?" "Excellent. You are quite correct. But can all people believe as you do? It is a most arduous sacrifice." Only after Sangjenim received Hyungryo's pledge 3 times did he enter into Hyungryo's house and seat himself. One day, Sangjenim proclaimed to Hyungryo, "My work is the renewal of heaven and earth. It is thus the work of renewing heaven and earth. Since you will wield strength through your faith in me, you must not follow ways crafted by others. You must instead craft everything anew. The only work that the old heaven is conducting is the destruction of humanity. Hereafter, the basic necessities of life will become exhausted, making it impossible for anyone to survive. And so I am compelled to disassemble and reconstruct the world. All the world now nears the great epoch of Gabyuk. I shall disassemble and reconstruct the heaven and earth of the early heaven's final era, which abounds with turmoil, to bring forth a new world and deliver humans and spirits from their sea of turmoil into peace and prosperity. Such is the Gaebyuk of heaven and earth. It is neither merely a continuation of what has been, nor is it bound to the tides of the world, for it is the work which I am the first and only to undertake. If you rely upon your parents' wealth, you must read their faces before requesting anything. If you dwell in a dilapidated house, you must always live in fear that it will one day collapse. Relying upon what others have wrought, or upon that which has become decrepit, engenders uneasiness and apprehension, and it is therefore only proper to build an entirely new foundation. Sangjenim one day told Hyungril, "If your household is on a course for ruin, craft a new beginning by discarding all possessions without any regret over their value. If you believe your possessions to be precious and cling to them, you will be utterly ruined, even in body." By disassembling and reconstructing heaven and earth, I have firmly and seamlessly woven together Dosu, and new turning points shall unfold as these Dosu become fulfilled one after another. New turning points shall unfold as the Dosu become fulfilled one after another. By redirecting the destiny of heaven and earth, I have firmly and seamlessly woven together Dosu, and new turning points shall unfold as these Dosu become fulfilled one after another. Be careful never to stray, and keep your faith with one mind. With one mind, you can overturn the world. I shall now have heaven and earth confirm that the work of renewal which I have conducted for 9 years is true and flawless. So you must now bear witness to this to strengthen your faith. Heaven and earth have no words, but express themselves through thunder and earthquakes. Uitong, salvation and unification through healing. Those who forsake the benevolence of their sovereigns contravene Tao. Those who forsake the benevolence of their parents contravene Tao. Those who forsake the benevolence of their teachers contravene Tao. In this world, loyalty, filial piety, and fidelity have been forsaken. Hence the whole world is afflicted with illness. Now that the end of the early heaven has arrived, the world will undergo Gaebyuk, and the great destiny of Muguk shall unfold. Therefore, be always vigilant in all matters to avoid engendering vengeful chi within others. Distance yourself from sin, and cultivate and purify yourself with Tao with a pure and right mind, and then participate in the grand court that conducts the work of renewing heaven and earth. I shall redirect heaven and earth's destiny with my power of creation transformation, and bring forth the paradise of immortality, of ageless longevity, delivering all beings from the sea of agony. In March 1903, while conducting a major work of renewal, Sangjenim proclaimed, "I shall remedy heaven and earth, which have become afflicted with illness. I shall send high spirits of Joseon to the west to initiate a massive upheaval that shall sweep away the early heaven's wicked ways and its reign of mutual conflict and domination, to raise up the paradise of immortality. I shall intermingle the east and west like bibimbap." Before I descended from heaven to this world, I entrusted to the imperial court of heaven the authority to govern the affairs of heaven and earth. However, beginning in 1901, I shall personally govern all matters. When all matters, great and small, are governed through the way of spirits, indescribable wonders are achieved. Such is the way of change through non-action. Thus I now bring harmony to the realm of spirits, inaugurating the government of creation transformation, with which I shall establish, in accordance with the supreme Tao of Muguk, the boundless destiny of the paradise of immortality. So it is that new turning points shall unfold as the Dosu become fulfilled one after another. Sangjenim conducted a work of renewal concerning Myeongbu for many days at Hyungro's home. As he conducted this work of renewal, Sangjenim declared, "All the affairs of the world flow in accordance with judgments made in Myeongbu. So chaos in Myeongbu spawns disorder in the world. Therefore, I shall now completely re-establish Myeongbu in order to rebuild the world. I now entrust Jun Myung-suk with the Joseon Myeongbu, Kim Il-bu with the Chinese Myeongbu, Chae Soo-un with the Japanese Myeongbu, and Matteo Ricci with the Western Myeongbu. I appoint them the heads of the re-establishment of the Myeongbu." During this period, Sangjenim wrote and then burned many writings day and night without rest. The early heaven was an era in which the three realms were closed. Therefore, the regional spirit of each country was unable to communicate with other such regional spirits or travel across their territories, and so the regional spirits' dominions remained parochial. However, the age of uniting the world has dawned. So I now fling open the realm of spirits to enable the spirits of all countries to freely travel to one another's lands and exchange cultures. The Tao of Immortalism, the Tao of Buddhism, the Tao of Confucianism, and the Tao of Christianity are the basis of many of the world's cultures. I now appoint Chae Soo-un as the head of the Tao of Immortalism, Jin Mook as the head of the Tao of Buddhism, Zhu Ji as the head of the Tao of Confucianism, and Matteo Ricci as the head of the Tao of Christianity. These new heads shall gather together the essence of each tradition and lead the preeminent spirits of all teachings and the preeminent spirits of all civilizations in extracting the essence of the many different cultures and uniting them into one. I now unite the three Taos: Buddhism, whose essence is form substance; Immortalism, whose essence is creation transformation; Confucianism, whose essence is propriety. My Tao is akin to Buddhism, but is not Buddhism. My Tao is akin to Immortalism, but is not Immortalism. My Tao is akin to Confucianism, but is not Confucianism. I now extract the marrow of Buddhism, Immortalism, and Confucianism and infuse this marrow within Immortalism. The time has now come to re-establish heaven and earth's dosu and determine the rightful place of each spirit. Jun Myung-suk strived to deliver people who were trapped in torment and free the common people from their ignoble station in life. For this, all the spirits regarded him most highly. Jun Myung-suk was an illustrious general without compare. Throughout all the ages, Jun Myung-suk was the only one who rose from the rank of a poor scholar without station and sparked massive upheavals across the entire world. Though the world's people know nothing of Matteo Ricci's meritorious deeds and virtue, he is revered by all the spirits of heaven and earth. Matteo Ricci is the head spirit of the spirit realm. He is always at my side, serving me by presiding over all matters, and so you should hold him in the highest esteem. Matteo Ricci revised the system of calendar for the 24 seasons and thus refined the divisions within a year to the benefit of all people ever after. In the future, we will use an even more precise method of measuring time. Matteo Ricci is the benefactor spirit of all people. Since ancient times, all wars and feuds among the tribes of different lands have arisen from a lack of unification between regional spirits and terrestrial chi. Therefore, unification between regional spirits and terrestrial chi shall be the fundamental impetus for eternal peace among humanity. All tribes had unique experiences that led to particular ways of thinking, and hence to the formation of distinct cultures, which inevitably provoked disputes when one culture encountered another. Thus, I now extract and gather the essence of each culture to lay the foundation of the later heavens civilization. To renew heaven and earth, and establish the paradise of immortality, I must first properly redirect the dosu of heaven and earth, then bring harmony to all the spirits from throughout the ages by resolving their bitterness and grief, and fulfilling their wishes, and unite the essence of chi of lands, rivers, and mountains. Moaksan Mountain of Jeonju County and Haemunsan Mountain of Suncheon County, which face each other, are the parent mountains. Parents, as heads of the household, nurture and oversee all family members, so the uniting of terrestrial chi naturally must begin with the parent mountains. Hence, I now consecrate Moaksan Mountain as the principal mountain, and Haemunsan Mountain as her consort, and thereby unite the spiritual chi of all mountains and rivers. Just as it is written in Su'un's writings, that the great destiny of mountains and rivers shall be fulfilled with this Tao, and just as it is written in Gung-woo lyrics, that the four auspicious sites shall rouse again, so the age of peace will not be distant, I shall awaken the chi of the four auspicious sites, so that, through 5 immortals playing Baduk, I shall resolve all discord over right and wrong in the world. Through venerable Buddhist monks in prayer, I shall have the world sit in meditation. Through subjects receiving imperial decrees, I shall bring forth the illustrious of the world. Through female immortals weaving silk, I shall clothe the world's people in silk. By establishing these auspicious sites as the foundation, I shall rouse and set in motion the great destiny of mountains and rivers. On Haemunsan Mountain lies an auspicious site named 5 immortals playing Baduk. Yao devised the game of Baduk and conferred it upon Danju. So it is that the resolution of Danju's bitterness and grief and his wish fulfillment will begin with 5 immortals playing Baduk, from which the great destiny of the world shall unfold. Sangjenim continued, "With this, I shall also resolve all discord over right and wrong in Joseon. Only when all the bitterness that has accumulated since ancient times is resolved, and all the tragedies resulting from it are expunged, will everlasting peace be attained. Throughout the early heaven, the principle of mutual conflict and domination has governed all humanity and all existence, and thus all human affairs have transgressed against the Tao of righteousness, causing bitterness and grief. This untold accumulation of bitterness and grief has overflowed the 3 realms, and the deadly chi is now bursting forth, spawning horrific disasters across the world. Therefore, I shall now disassemble and reconstruct the dosu of heaven and earth, and rectify the way of spirits to resolve all the bitterness that has accumulated throughout history, wield the Tao of mutual life-giving and life-saving to usher in the destiny of the paradise of immortality, and establish the government of creation transformation to rule without action and teach without words, in order to edify all people. By these means, I shall rebuild the world. Now is the age of the resolution of bitterness and grief. The unheralded shall ascend to power, and places previously unknown will prosper. I reign over all the spirits of failed revolutionaries from throughout the ages in the East and West. These revolutionaries were victims of time and circumstance. Possessing the capacity to govern the world, they espoused a grand vision of reforming and saving the world. However, since the times were not in their favor, they could not achieve their dreams, and their families were annihilated. So they became spirits filled with immense bitterness, doomed to wander for ages. People ignorant of the truth have reviled these revolutionaries as evil traitors, and have commonly referred to them as originators of society's ills. So how could they not be filled with bitterness and anguish? Thus, I now send all the spirits of failed revolutionaries to the constellations, which know no discrimination over right and wrong. Regarding heaven, the new heavens and old heavens are judged in terms of right and wrong. Regarding earth, fertile soils and barren soils are judged in terms of right and wrong. Regarding weather, floods and droughts are judged in terms of right and wrong. Regarding seasons, heat and cold are judged in terms of right and wrong. Only the constellations are free of such discrimination. When the head is raised, everything else naturally straightens as well. The story of Danju, son of Yao, is the first record of a heavenly bond being severed, the beginning of the history of deep-rooted bitterness. If the deep bitterness of Danju is resolved, the knots of all the bitterness that has amassed over the thousands of years since the time of Yao and Danju will unravel. Yao regarded Danju as unworthy, and so gave Shun his kingdom, as well as his 2 daughters in marriage. This provoked deep bitterness within Danju. Eventually, the powerful force of his resentment brought about the death of Shun at Chang'u, and hence the suicide of the 2 queens, who flung themselves into the Shaosheng River. It was these events that deeply embedded the root of bitterness in history, and from there on, bitterness upon bitterness amassed as the ages passed, eventually engulfing heaven and earth and bringing the world to the verge of exploding. Therefore, resolution of Danju's bitterness and grief and his wish fulfillment shall be the starting point, followed by such resolution and fulfillment for all the spirits of failed revolutionaries. The revolutionaries possessed noble aspirations of saving the world, but the times were not in their favor. So they, their families, and their relatives suffered the horrible fate of annihilation, causing them to bear insufferable grief that reverberated throughout heaven, and to wander for ages bereft of descendants for solace. However, I shall resolve their bitterness, anger, and humiliation, judge their actions and intentions justly to correct all distortions, and grant them places of solace, giving them everlasting peace. These measures represent the first steps in founding the paradise of immortality. Now is the age of the resolution of bitterness and grief and the fulfillment of wishes. I shall bring harmony to the spirits by resolving their bitterness that has accumulated over the ages and by fulfilling their wishes. And I shall establish the government of creation transformation through the Tao of mutual life-giving and life-saving to raise up the unprecedented world of the paradise of immortality. I shall now ascend Haemunsan Mountain to establish a new order for heaven and earth. I shall destine the tides of the world through the spiritual chi of an auspicious site known as 5 immortals playing Badu, where 2 immortals contest a match, 2 offer advice, and 1 is the master of the game. The master, unable to take sides, observes the match and devotes himself solely to accommodating the guests. Since the wherewithal of his household is not particularly lacking, the master fulfills his duties as long as he does not neglect propriety in accommodating the guests. When the match reaches its conclusion and everyone else departs, the game board and the game itself return to the master. Han Gaozhu long ago gained the world on horseback, but we shall gain the world while seated. The East is in a state of imminent peril, and if I do not hold fast to the East, it will succumb to the West forever. Sangjenim spoke at length toward the air above the man-shaped bell, but the attending disciples could not understand Sangjenim's words, because he was not speaking in the language of Joseon. Sangjenim finally proclaimed, I shall have Joseon await its destiny ordained by heaven, as I temporarily entrust Joseon to another country. If I entrust Joseon to the West, the difference in race will lead to deep discrimination and abuse, and the people of Joseon will not survive. I cannot entrust Joseon to Qing China, because their people are unattuned to the tides of change and hence cannot fulfill their duty. Vengeful chi has been amassing between Tao mastery spirits of Joseon and Japan since the Imjin War, and so only the yielding of Joseon to Japan can resolve this vengeful chi. Therefore, I shall aid Japan by temporarily bestowing upon it the chi of world unification and the chi of the sun and moon's supreme brilliance, so that Japan can carry out my work in the world. But there is one thing I cannot grant the Japanese, the word benevolence. If I grant them so much as the word benevolence, the whole world will become theirs. Instead, I shall grant the word benevolence to you, the people of Joseon. So even if everything is taken away from you, do not surrender the word benevolence. You are a fortunate people, for the Japanese will serve as your workers. They will tend to all labors diligently and effectively, but return to their own country empty-handed without receiving wages. So offer them generous words at least. Sangjenim posed a question to Byung-uk. Japan and Russia have seized advantage of Joseon's weakness to struggle for domination over Joseon. The imperial court is divided into two factions, one favoring an alliance with Japan and the other favoring a coalition with Russia. What are your thoughts on this? Byung-uk answered, racial discrimination and the differences between the East and West make it wiser for Joseon to align with Japan and keep Russia at a distance. You are correct. If Western power is not driven forth, the East will be trampled by the West forever. Therefore, Western power must be expelled to preserve the East. And so I shall now advance Japan to the fore to serve as heaven and earth's mighty worker. To free you from your tribulation, I shall start a war between Japan and Russia, then drive away Russia by aiding Japan. Not believing Sangjenim's words, the disciples said to one another, it is ridiculous to instigate a war between two nations to resolve one man's crisis. It is even more absurd for our teacher to claim that he will drive off mighty Russia by helping the small and weak country Japan. In April 1907, while Sangjenim and Shin Won-il were staying at the house of Shin Kyung-won, the caretaker of the Guan-yu Shrine in Taein County, Sangjenim one day visited the Guan-yu Shrine with Won-il and Kyung-won, and there conducted a work of renewal in which he conferred a heavenly mandate upon the spirit of General Guan-yu. At this time, Sangjenim declared, to expel the Western forces and hence save the imperial weak nations of the East, I must now ignite a war among the Western powers. The spirit of Guan-yu has sojourned in Joseon and received supreme venerations. So, it is fitting that he now requite these venerations by participating to the utmost in my work of renewal. Sangjenim then composed a writing on a sheet of paper and burned it, summoning General Guan-yu's spirit. Witnessing this ritual for the first time, Kyung-won thought it strange. The air thick with solemnity, Sangjenim spoke about the pressing and perilous state of the tides of the world, and then conferred upon the spirit of General Guan-yu a heavenly mandate to ignite a momentous war in the West. Though General Guan-yu dared not defy this mandate, he hesitated, as his heart was not readily inclined to accept it. Sangjenim severely castigated the general in a furious voice. Considering the direness of these times, you must now advance to the fore, so commit to my mandate immediately. How long will you remain the chief gatekeeper of the 3 gates of Jade City? Even so, General Guan-yu did not answer, and so Sangjenim yanked on the general's beard and ripped his attire. At that moment, part of the beard of Guan-yu's statue in the shrine fell to the ground. Sangjenim spent the entire night thundering fiery rebukes until General Guan-yu finally relented and departed to the west, having accepted Sangjenim's mandate. Later, Kim Kyung-hak, Che Jang-jo, Che Ne-kyung, and Jeong, all from Taein County, in awe of Sangjenim's presence, became his followers. One day Sangjenim revealed, in the future, there will be 2 wars between China and Japan. In the first war, China will be defeated. The second war will last 10 years, but Japan will ultimately be vanquished and driven out. The Chinese army will invade Joseon, but they shall be unable to advance south of the Hangang River. Sangjenim then had a bowl of water brought. Flicking the water with his fingers, he proclaimed, "The West shall readily withdraw without anyone lifting a finger." Sangjenim declared, "Learning vast knowledge from the Western people and then attacking them is a betrayal of benevolence. The Japanese fighting against America will be a violation of the law of retribution for all who betray their teacher. Consequently, 80 ri of Jangkwang will become a sea of fire, and the Japanese will suffer utter ruination." One day Sangjenim declared, "The tides of the world shall be as those of a Shiram tournament. After the children's match and youth's match, the tournament shall be brought to an end with a Sangshiram." Sangjenim drew on a sheet of paper a stroke like the center curve of the Taeguk symbol and revealed, "This is a 3/8 line. I shall plant the flag for the Shiram tournament at Joseon's 38th parallel, where I shall launch the Sangshiram of the world. I shall establish the court of judgment for all nations in Joseon. When the ox enters the Shiram ring, the tournament shall be brought to an end." In the gambling game False 9, when 10-5 reaches its fullest, a sweep ensues. This is a secret revealed to the world about the fulfillment that will usher in the later heaven. I am employing all of this in the work of renewing heaven and earth. With the Sangshiram, everything will come to an end in the direction of Gan. One day in Guritgo village, Sangjenim declared, "My work is like the Sangshiram of a Shiram tournament. The one who is to win the Sangshiram partakes of drinks, slumbers and lounges about, watching with disinterest until people create an uproar by crying out, 'The Sangshiram showdown is coming!' Only then does he rise and enter the center of the ring. He rolls up his trousers and strides into the ring, and contenders already in the tournament whisper here and there among themselves. Paying no heed, he makes a sweeping turn and roars in a voice of thunder, 'Come, behold the Sangshiram! The victor has arrived!' The yellow rooster unfurls its 2 wings and crows 2 times. Sangshiram contenders enter. Who can be his match? Alas, all the others are hollow people. He who is to win the ox has been there all along, and the others have pranced around all night in vain. 6 instruments resound afar, and the Sangshiram has come to an end." In the presence of many disciples, Taemanim revealed, "In the future, there will be a Gabyuk of heaven and earth. In the times to come, the Sangshiram showdown will spill over, and the 38th parallel will be swept away at that time. Few will survive." How astounding that the chi of 3/8 wood rouses and brings to pass the 3/8 line. The whole world heaves. Behold the destiny. Behold the destiny. It is the destiny of the straits of the disease. There are in heaven and earth masses of fire as vast as the largest mountains. If those masses of fire were to manifest and roll across the world, how could you possibly survive? If those mountainous masses of fire were to remain unchecked, the entire world would be incinerated to ashes. Hence, I have now buried this fire. One day, Sangjenim had dozens of disciples seat themselves in a room at Changjo's house and commanded, "Each of you recite 3 words." The disciples each recited 3 words from the 1,000-character classic, starting from the beginning. When it was Daejeong's turn, the last word he called out was "il." "Daejeong must be fond of the Japanese king," Sangjenim chided. "Do not imitate others. Just say whatever comes to your mind." The next evening, Sangjenim cleaned the tar from his tobacco pipe by pushing a thin roll of paper through it. As the paper began to emerge from the pipe's end, Sangjenim said to Dojeon, "Pull it out all at once without letting go, then throw it outside the door." When Dojeon did as commanded, all the dogs in the village began barking at once. Dojeon asked, "Why are the dogs barking so?" "It is because high spirits approach." "May I ask, which spirits?" "The spirits of smallpox. These spirits shall come only to the nation of the Son of Heaven. The spirits of smallpox shall arrive before the arrival of my world. For a time in the future, there will be no smallpox, but when the time arrives, smallpox shall erupt. Understand that when it does so, the catastrophic disease is imminent. At the coming of the time, the distinguished shall be plucked like bean sprouts. So keep your mind pure and await the coming of my time." In July 1908, Sangjenim conducted one work of renewal in a hemp field in Chebichangul Ravine, and another work of renewal at the crossroads on the highest point of Sejunje Trail. He caused the wind to blow from the southeast. As it did so, he briefly suffered from a fever. Sangjenim observed, "If it is only this strong, people can be cured and become fit for my service." Sangjenim then caused the southeastern wind to blow all the more strongly and declared, "The southeastern wind usually blows only in spring, but I shall make it blow in November and December to create a disease. The catastrophic disease shall stir sluggishly, but eventually rage so fiercely that survival will be difficult. My destiny lies in foul disease." "I do not understand," Gapchil said to Sangjenim. "Why do you, one who heals, say that your destiny lies in disease?" Sangjenim replied, "Have you not heard the saying, 'Inflict the disease, then administer the cure'? Without the straits of the disease, destiny cannot be yours. Your destiny lies in the straits of the disease. For the disease shall one day call humanity. I have positioned in this area the commander spirits of the mysterious disease, a disease both deadly and nameless. When these commander spirits mobilize, the disease shall break out around the world. When this mysterious disease attacks, the corpses will be as innumerable as shrimps choking a rice paddy sluice. In the future, the world shall be plunged into terrible turmoil. When the mysterious disease spreads, you shall go forth waving the banner of the autumn god's assumption of the mandate, and the world will finally recognize you. At that time, all will finally realize those practitioners of Tao are the true." Taimonim revealed, in the future, the mysterious disease will first strike the shores of Gunsan. This mysterious disease will spread so rapidly that there will not be a moment to seek medicine, and the falling of the dew from blades of grass will seem slow. Many diseases will strike, culminating in one ultimate disease. It is the ordinary people who shall die, and the practitioners of Tao who shall live. Keep your mind righteous, and faithfully chant the Teulju mantra, for this is the sole pathway to refuge. A disciple asked, "Do you mean to say that there will be no medicine in the world for this catastrophic disease?" Sangjenim replied, "That is true, for the means of salvation lies beyond the mainstream. Should there be one with a medicine, that person will be the first to die when the catastrophic disease strikes. At the outbreak of the catastrophic disease, all the world's arts of medicine will become useless. However, heaven harbors no principle of complete extinction. So it was that the immortals, Buddhas, and sages in heaven entreated me, 'Please descend to the world and deliver humanity from annihilation by disease.' Their sincere plea moved me to incarnate into this world. I shall deliver the world's people from annihilation and bring forth the paradise of immortality that will endure for ages. Those who follow me shall survive the horrific cataclysm."